Hello, and welcome to Friendly Fire. Today we'll be discussing nurture versus nature. On the side of nurture, we have Dave Schellenberger, and on the side of nature, we have Darren Peterson. For the purposes of this debate, we'll be excluding any external, maybe religious factors, such as if personality may come from a soul or a spirit, and we'll be focusing solely on the scientific facts. For the opening argument, we'll turn to Darren.
Okay. Basically, we're all born a set way, in my opinion. Genetics determine who we're going to be and how we're going to act from the start. Outside influences simply just make it so that we can show exactly how we are already predisposed to respond to those situations.
Dave.
I believe in quite the exact opposite. I believe that while nature gives you, like say, a base set of clay, it is nurture that determines what it actually becomes. External influences will tell you more about what you'll be than when you are a baby, for instance.
All right, Darren, we'll turn to you for the first rebuttal.
Okay, so we're all raw clay from the start, and everything we do determines how we're going to be in the long run. That wouldn't work. It may work in humans, but if you're looking at nature in general, for example, a cat from birth will work with a litter box, even though no other cat can be there to teach it how to work. It just automatically goes to that because genetically it just knows to go there. And same with most creatures. There's things that they have as habits right from the start, even though nobody teaches them how to do that. Certain dog breeds are more inclined to play fetch because they're just wanting to chase things that move, and others just laze around because they have no disposition to do that. Even if you're trying to teach them, they won't do it.
And then you can fire back at him.
Well, I would say to that yes, we're born, and I'm not saying that nature doesn't exist at all. I believe it is pretty much the base of what we are. Like I said, there's the lump of clay. In there you have your instincts and all that fun stuff, but what makes it, say, a pot or a statue or anything like that is pretty much what we do. Now, yes, dogs and cats and all that are primarily run by what you would call a nature thing, but in humans, it's our ability to pretty much ignore that and let our environment decide who we're going to be, is what I would say. And to fire back, I would say, in twin studies, if, like say they were put up for adoption and are completely different environments growing up, they turn into completely different people. They might have a similarity in hair color, eye color, certain things that they're born with. But by the time they get to their teens, they're completely different people with their own personalities and own life experiences. So my question is, if nature was the all-driving force, why in genetically similar twins do you see a difference?
The problem with twin studies is they don't always take that route, though, because there's been different twin studies where they have twins that never knew about each other, had different experiences, yet you meet them and they have the same personalities. Where, for example, me and my brother haven't lived together. We're not twins, obviously. We haven't lived together in over 10 years. However, we have very similar personalities, even though we have no influence on each other's lives and have had very different lives. Different parenting, different households, different locations. So sometimes the flip happens where even though they're separated, they end up being the same person, or relatively close to being the same person. Just like with certain people go through traumatic experiences like 9/11, things like that. If the experience is what shapes everybody, you'd expect everybody to have the same reactions to those experiences. However, some people get angry, some people get sad, some people shut down emotionally. We saw the country get very patriotic for some people, while other people started blaming the government for conspiracies and things like that. People were just predisposed to do whatever was naturally inclined for their being, and not exactly what the influence of that action would have caused.
Darren, I think you need to clear something up because you're talking about people are predisposed to react a certain way in a situation, but you're not necessarily dealing with the issue of whether or not that's predestined from birth or those reactions are the result of previous experiences that person may have had or ways that they're...
compounding of experiences?
Right. I think basically what Dave's getting at is that generally our personalities wind up being the sum of our experiences.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any way that you can counter that?
Okay, so fight or flight for most people does not change over their lifetime. From birth, they're either going to be people that respond with aggression when posed with a dangerous situation, or they're going to try to flee. So it pretty much is, they respond with aggression or they run. That is something that most people stick by their entire life. It doesn't change even when pressed with situation after situation. It's something that they always respond the same way, and they don't try to break from that because it's what's worked for them in the past.
Dave, you said that nature is the clay that we build our personalities out of. What percentage of that original base material would you actually say winds up becoming part of your personality later on?
But I would say overall, maybe about 10% of anything that you actually react to is from genetics, and I would say maybe about 90% is about your life experiences, things you've seen, the way you want to react to things. I believe you have a say in how you're going to be. Not everything was handed to you and that's the way it is.
Now, regardless of the way you might want to be, there are still going to be things in your life which affect you that are outside of your control. Are you trying to say that, you know, that 90% is your sheer willpower of how you want to be? Or is it actually the way that you've experienced life and the way that you've learned to be?
Well, when you say things outside of your control, are you talking about...
I'm saying, for example, if a young man is born and his father leaves, so he's only raised by his mother, that would be something, an external factor that would severely shape his life, but at the same time was out of his control. Could just wishing that he was more manly or more, I mean, there are certain personality traits that you're going to derive from that, but does willing it to be differently or different than that actually change that? Is that in your opinion?
I believe so. I think that if you don't like a situation that you were handed, you can overcome that essentially by just saying you want to. Like,
right, but at the core, isn't the will to want to part of what your experience has been? Or part of your personality?
Well, some people from birth have strong willpowers. You see these kids that achieve so much at young ages because they have the will to do that. To me, that's more of a genetic thing. Because if it was just willpower is all you needed, we wouldn't see so many diets fail constantly for people. They just don't have the potential to have enough will to overcome those situations.
So in your opinion, that's genetic, that willpower is genetic? And that
willpower, I think, for most people from birth is exactly the same to when they become an adult. Kids that want more young have the exact same drive when they're 50. That's what you see with all these great achievers. They always wanted it from the start. They never had fluctuations. Sometimes I was really wanting to go for it, and sometimes I didn't. They've always had that drive throughout their entire life.
Dave, do you have any rebuttal for that?
For that? No. I do, however, have a rebuttal for what you said earlier. In your example earlier, you talked about a parent leaving and being raised by one parent. Obviously, this is something I'm familiar with. And in the nature case, I would inherit essentially half of my behaviors from a parent that fled. I'm not one to say that maybe I didn't inherit anything from him, but I would like to believe that I did not. And I believe try to rise above that.
Mm-hmm. Would you say that's that your choice to do that is that comes from your personality? Okay. Now I'll ask both of you this question. Okay. So Dave makes a choice. He decides that he wants to change his personality in a certain way, but the impetus for that, the seed of that will to change, did that come from your genetics and the will that you were dealt at your birth, Or did that come from the people that were around you when you grew up, the people that influenced him as he grew up? Was that core personality that led him to make a decision to be a better person, was that in his genes, or was that something that he learned?
I would put that as genetically. That could have been, you said half the genes would have been your father, but the other half could have been your mother's, which would have been the different side of that will. So if you are a mix of both, her side could be overriding his side on what your personality would have been. I'm the exact opposite. Well, I guess I'm not the exact opposite. I'm the exact opposite in the way I see it. I also grew up, no dad, died before I was even 2 years old. However, there's a lot of habits that I'm told I have that I would have never have been able to pick up from him. Certain things that I like, certain ways I act, certain ways that I speak are all, unless I picked them up in the year and a half that I was with him and it set me for life, there would have been no way for me to know those things. And I didn't grow up in the same place or anything like that. So the environment didn't play into it. It had to have been something else already with me.
Dave, you answer that question?
Well, like I said, that while I think genetics may play a very small part in it, because
right,
obviously you're born with that and before you're conscious of anything, but I believe that it was the experiences that played a part more than nature. I believe seeing what I saw, doing what I did, impacted what I'm going to do in the future.
That comes to adaptation, though, the need for you to adapt to your situations, which is more of a genetics thing, because some people have more potential to adapt to their situations, and others, they write everything out the exact same way every time. So, for example, changing from introvert to extrovert could be an adaptation for certain things that you do will make you happy or make you sad, or you want to change them so that you are happy or sad, and that comes down to dopamine and serotonin, all the hormones of your brain, wanting to make you change to have the feelings and reactions that you do want. So that can just be genetic predisposition to achieve the things that you want that give you pleasure and things like that.
But wouldn't I be genetically inclined to stay one way?
If you have the potential to adapt to a situation, then that would have been your inclination from the start. That was more what I was saying.
Okay.
All right, and now for our closing arguments. First, or since Darren got to shoot first, we're going to let Dave have the first one on this one.
All right. In closing, like I said before, when you start life out, you're a big ball of clay. And through your life and experiences, you get molded into what you're going to become. I have a study that was published May 18th of this year, 2015, in Nature's Genetics. And it pretty much looked at every twin study done from 1958 to 2012. And it said that over the course of their studies, which they looked over 2,748 of them, about 14.5 million pairs of twins, and they studied 17,804 traits. And their conclusion was that it was almost even, finishing with about 51% saying that 51% was all nurture compared to 49% in genetics. Disorders such as bipolar were agreed to be about 70% genetic and 30% environmental, while, say, eating disorders were 60% environmental to 40% genetic. So while it goes back and forth, the slight edge goes to nurture, from what I've found in these studies.
Okay, so studies say it's close to half, but not quite. You originally said 10% to 90%. I personally think it would be closer to 75% nature, 25% nurture, so that most of everything would be what you're going to be predisposed to do anyways. Everything about you is already determined, with a quarter of that being wiggle room for things that your body and your mind may not have ever been ready to handle, where the outcome would be completely undetermined without that outside influence determining it. I actually looked at another twin study. I'd like to see that done, broken down by country. I think that'd be interesting to see what different countries had different traits carrying over constantly. But also there's another study I looked into that is also a twin study that broke down economics for the average household was one of the bigger determining factors of the potential of people. So that would lean more towards nurture determining it. So I don't know. It's probably a decent mix somewhere, but I think percentage is debatable on how much one influences over the other.
All right. Well, in the spirit of friendly fire, we will not conclude this debate with naming a winner. Instead, we're going to leave it up to you. Please leave something in the comments. Let us know your opinion. We'll get back to you next episode and let you know who is actually the winner on this one. But I have a feeling, with as close as this argument was, that the comments are going to be pretty similar. So good luck, and we'll see you back here next week on Friendly Fire.